In this video, we're going to talk about how corrosion happens on different types of metal.
That the entirety of the cosmos is accessible through each and every individual's mind, connecting to the great mind, the great spirit.
Welcome back to the channel, collectors. So, in yesterday's video, we have just reviewed the Chaos Knight Rampager Decima. This is a greater series of videos where I go through part by part of the Chaos Knight Rampager and how I create a more weathered Chaos Knight in comparison to the Chaos Knight Desecrator. So, back to the video. We have painted the Chaos Knight Desecrator in a relatively clean manner. However, for the Chaos Knight Rampager, we are going to make her really dirty. In this series of videos, we also like to showcase how the overbrush technique can achieve this really weathered look on the Chaos Knight Rampager. So prior to painting the Chaos Knight Rampager, I've been watching a lot of scale modelers such as Night Shift, and I've learned a lot of very valuable skills, and I'm really excited to try them on a mechanical miniature. While watching many scale modeler YouTubers, I noticed one thing that they all have in common. Of course, they are very passionate about history and scale modeling, but there is one thing that is a lot more pertinent than that. They all use references.
So right here we have the 4 materials that we will be learning how to weather today. And on the top left corner we have rusted iron and steel, followed by copper, brass, and then paint chipping. These materials happen in real life, and in order to replicate them onto the model, you need to study the references as closely as possible and hopefully learn some science also. And with this knowledge, I believe that we can make realistic weathering on our miniatures, which will highly benefit the intended effect.
So in short, they use a lot of World War II photographs and try to replicate the effects on these photographs. Additionally, because they are so passionate, many of them take the extra time and effort to read through the manufacturing processes of the tank and try to replicate the different layers and processes that went into making the tank. In this video, I hope to apply what I've learned from all these very amazing scale modelers into a Chaos Knight Rampager. If you're ready, let us begin. So in this video, I'd like to share with you guys some knowledge of how different metals get corroded. So while you're doing weathering, material knowledge is of utmost importance. You will need to know how different metals get corroded and how they look like before and after they are corroded. Material number 1, iron and steel. It's time to get a little geeky. Iron corrodes in 2 ways. So the compounds formed are iron 2 oxide and iron 3 oxide. With this knowledge, you will have the opportunity to illustrate new rust and old rust. New rust looks orange and is a lot lighter in color. So areas which are newly rusted tend to have this really bright orange color.
So right here, what you can see is that I'm using Green Stuff World's clear orange inks mixed in with a little bit of walnut ink. I'm trying to increase the saturation of this orange area. So this sort of indicates that there is rust under the paint and seeping through, hence creating this effect. There we are.
Whereas areas which are heavily corroded tends to be old rust, which becomes reddish and brownish in color. This will be illustrated on subsequent tutorials on the Knight Rampager. Old rust can be seen all over the Knight Rampager frame.
So right here you can see me leave behind some of the dark brown, and this dark brown symbolizes the old rust which has been crusted on the Knight Rampager frame due to many years of neglect.
Whereas new rust can be seen streaking down from chipping on the Knight Rampager.
So right here I'm creating some streaking patterns using Green Stuff World's medium rust. I find that it has a very nice orange color which kind of symbolizes the new rust. So why new rust tends to streak down is because water washes down the rust pigments and it manifests itself in vertical lines.
Material number 2, copper. So on the Chaos Knight Rampager, the second most common material on it is copper. We have bloodstained copper all over the frame of the Chaos Knight Rampager. The trims are all in bloodstained copper.
So right here you can see me overbrushing the bloody copper on the Knight Rampager. I painted the bloody copper in a pretty pristine manner so that it's as clean as possible. However, I will be adding in some verdigris and some corrosion in areas where water would be normally collected.
As copper corrodes, it forms copper oxide, which is a green compound. You can always use nylite oxide or green stuff world's liquid pigment to create this effect.
So as you can see right here, I'm using a Q-tip to clean off the excess. The bloody copper has already been painted in a pristine manner, and I'm targeting areas where water would have collected, such as these nuts and bolts on the cockpit window, these little loops which water will definitely collect right there. Then always use a Q-tip to clean off the excess. I find that using a Q-tip also helps reduce the opacity, which creates a very subtle verdigris effect, and I like it a lot. So I'm focusing a lot on the nuts and bolts to make sure that it looks as realistic as possible.
However, copper also exists as a blue compound as copper sulfate. In more exposed areas, assuming the Chaos Knight might be in a volcanic area with high sulfur content, you might get copper sulfate which is blue in color. So using two of these colors is entirely possible and entirely acceptable. Material number 3, brass. So brass exists as a mixture between copper and zinc. The corrosion of brass happens when the zinc is lost and the copper begins to corrode. As mentioned in the previous section, copper corrodes in two colors, blue and green. However, more commonly, brass statues corrodes like verdigris. To create a corroded effect on brass material, it is recommended to use a greenish compound like nylite oxide or green stuff world's liquid pigment. Material number 4, paint chipping. So paint chipping isn't really a metal, it's more like a covering on the metal surface. So paint chipping happens when the surface is damaged and the paint chips off the metal surface. What happens is the undersurface is revealed and it will be corroded if exposed to the environment.
So what you can see is that I'm creating some paint chips. What we are trying to symbolize is that the red paint that was used to paint the Chaos Star has chipped off, revealing the underneath paint, which is this bone white color on this Chaos Knight Rampager. You want to make sure that the sponge is very dry and very unloaded before you do this. You don't want to end up with a huge blotch of paint which makes it very hard to clean up. And here we are, the chipping effect.
Because these areas are less exposed to the environment, sometimes rusting can occur under the paint layer. This will result in rust seeping out, creating an orange filter above the damaged area.
So chipping can also unveil some of the underlying metals, and these underlying metals will also probably rust under very harsh conditions. And when these metals are exposed to the environment and rusting, sometimes water can be trapped under the paint, which leads to it rusting and seeping beyond the paint surface. This creates this new rust which appears on the paint surface, hence this orange filter which I'm applying on the chipped areas right here.
But wait 1 minute, why didn't I talk about gold or silver? Haha, tricks on you, cause gold and silver does not corrode. Gold and silver tends to be very stable compounds, and how they corrode, they only slightly tarnish. So if you want to create weathered gold, there is no need to put rust or verdigris on it, just tarnish it. So please use the right color and weather your materials the correct way. There we have it. I've covered most of the metals and how they are corroded, and I hope you have found it useful and paint your corroded metals in a scientific way. So in the next video, I'm going to show you guys how to use the overbrush technique to paint the entire Chaos Knight Rampager frame in under an hour. So I hope you will check that video out. I would like to take this opportunity to thank my patrons for supporting me in my video creating endeavor. It is through their support I am able to paint and produce awesome video content like this so that we get to become better miniature painters together. If you would like to support the channel, do head on to our Patreon page and become a patron today. For as little as $1, you can see my finished works earlier than anyone else in this world. The Patreon exclusive video for this series will be the Bloody Copper on the Knight Rampager's armor, as you guys can see right here. However, if you can't become a patron, that's okay too. Like to appreciate your time for watching to the end. So if you could help me out slightly further, click the like and subscribe and all the other stuff, hit the bell notification icon, and I hope to see you in the next video. See you